What's up, everybody? It's Carly Storms, and we're back for episode 4 of season 2 of Euphoria. For this episode, it's just gonna be me, and I'm looking forward to reacting to this episode because I would say this is probably the most hectic, crazy episode yet. So let's dive into it. At the very beginning of this episode, we open with Rue and Jules in Rue's bedroom, and Jules is going down on Rue. Now, Rue, per usual, is very extremely high, and so she can't really feel pleasure from Jules going down on her. But she does express a sentiment that she loves Jules so much, and then they go into this artistic montage of lovers from different movies. I really enjoyed that because, I don't know, it just gave me like some vibes, and it seemed really on brand with the show. So they go through this montage and then it flashes back into reality. Rue's basically like, I can't come from Jules going down on me, so she decides she's gonna fake an orgasm. It's honestly the worst faked orgasm that I've ever heard in my life. It's hilarious, and I had a good laugh over it. So Jules obviously is onto her, and she's like, what the fuck? So she goes over to Elliot's place and she tells Elliot about this experience. And Elliot's like, well, maybe you're not good at eating pussy. And she's like, maybe I am. I'm not sure. So she emulates the sound to Elliot, and he's like, ooh, let me help you. And then they end up like practicing eating somebody out on each other's hands, and then they start making out. A few minutes after they make out, or really it's like 30 seconds-ish after they start making out, he gets a text from Rue that she's there. So I already know off the top that it's gonna implode with the Elliot, Jules, Rue situation, and I'm not feeling it already. I feel like Elliot is betraying Rue, and Jules is betraying Rue too, and that's not cool. So we'll see what happens with that. Then it moves into the next scene, which is Maddie's birthday party, which is being thrown at Cassie's. Now, we already know that's gonna get messy because Cassie is having sex with Nate behind Maddie's back and feels guilty about it, and they go through that whole thing, and it's a mess. Meanwhile, Nate is still hanging out with Maddie and tells her he still loves her, yada, yada, yada. I don't believe a word that comes out of this man's mouth, but they're hanging out at the house that Maddie babysits at. And I think it's really interesting because she expresses that she loves him or loved him. I think she's still in love with him. And he basically just kind of doesn't seem in touch with his feelings. Like, he's not even, can he love? Like, does he understand what that is? We don't really know as the audience, but it's kind of weird. Then, the next scene, we go back to the party, and you can see Cassie's feeling guilty, as she should, bringing out the cake to Maddie, and she makes this beautiful scrapbook for Maddie. It's super over the top, heartfelt present, and Maddie sheds a tear, and Cassie sheds a tear, but I feel like Cassie just feels guilty, and that's why she's crying. And then you see Cassie is starting to drink a little too much at this party, so we already know that's not gonna end well. So Nate and Cassie have obviously gotten even more toxic, and we see them fighting at Nate's house in his bedroom. Nate's in the bathroom. Basically, Cassie is so delusional about what's going on. Like, it's clear to the audience that they're just fuck buddies, basically, but she thinks they're in love, and then Nate leads her on, but also Cassie should know better, considering she knows Nate, knows his dynamic in the relationship he had with Maddie. She basically thinks that they're in love, He even says when she's leaving after the argument that he loves her. But clearly they're not in love. This is just like some toxic relationship where I feel like Cassie just wants to feel loved, and then Nate, I don't even know that he has any sort of concept of what love is. We also get to see Lexi taking down little notes for her play that she's writing, and people are auditioning for that at the school. Honestly, I think it's salacious that she's taking personal conversations with her sister and other people in her life and using that for a play. I think when they show the play in later episodes that people are going to be really upset, because you can't do that. Like, it's not, I mean, you can, but it's not cool, right? So there's that part. Nate is going to go to Maddie's party at Cassie's, so we already know that's gonna get messy. He's writing his little card for her, and Cal comes down. Cal basically seems like he's having a full-blown mental break at this point, and he has his head bandage on after getting hit with a shotgun in the last episode. And he's drinking, he's drunk, he's playing 80s, 90s music, and basically making fun of Nate and belittling Nate. And Nate, actually, it's interesting because Nate seems really level-headed in this episode, which in all of last season and some of the other episodes, he seems so unhinged, but it's interesting to see him in this different light where other people are acting crazy and Nate's pretty calm. So his dad says he's gonna go for a drive. Nate's going to the party. His dad doesn't give a fuck, basically. He's like, whatever. Then we see Rue has now arrived at Elliot's. Rue's high as hell. She's dancing with Elliot. She goes to the bathroom to do a line. While she does that, Jules and Elliot start making out, and I'm sorry, I just think that is so messed up. Like, I think that's so messed up that they're doing that. She's there. She's cheating on her girlfriend behind her back while she's there. And Elliot is friends with Rue as well. But still, I feel like Jules has this weird selfish double standard in her mind, right? Because in previous episodes, she's upset because she feels like Rue has a crush on Elliot and vice versa, when I don't really think that Rue does at all. Elliot might. It's not really clear, but Rue definitely is fully committed to Jules, but she's also fully committed to drug use, right? And drug addiction. So Elliot goes in the bathroom. Rue has left a line underneath a red Solo cup and he blows it away. Comes back out and Jules has dared Rue to make out with Elliot for 10 seconds. She gets jealous of this and then she dares Elliot to lick from her stomach up her torso. And they're playing this weird like power play right now that is just very strange. So they leave to go get alcohol and we're gonna see where that heads. Questionable. Now we then go back to Maddie's birthday party. Cassie is getting wasted, okay? Hoisted. Kat's outside, clearly looking forlorn. She's kind of been like that this whole season. She hasn't had that big of a part in this season, but you can just see she's not happy with where she's at. So that's just a little something that they kind of throw in there that I think is interesting. Rue, Elliot, and Jules head to the liquor store. For a dare, they decide they're gonna steal some White Claws. So Elliot goes in there, tries to distract the store owner. Jules grabs the White Claws in a very not discreet way, runs out with them, and the store owner obviously notices immediately. Elliot jumps over the counter, messes with the cash register, and then they all end up running out. Elliot kind of disrespectfully knocks over a rack of stuff, and then they drive off. something I think that's really interesting about this scene and the entire episode is that Jules seems very preoccupied with Elliot and not with Rue. Because Rue's just sitting in the back seat for this, and they're basically just like, you just hang out while we go do this. And even on the way there, she's staring out the window, and it's so obvious that she's high, but it's like people are so preoccupied with their own stuff that they don't even notice this about her. I just think that's really interesting. Cal leaves on his drive. He is in no condition to drive. He's passing people dangerously. He's being reckless as fuck. Going to the gay bar that he went to in high school because he's having some sort of revelation about his sexuality in this episode. It's really interesting. So he shows up at the gay bar and gets a drink. He puts on a Sinead O'Connor song and ends up dancing with this other gay guy who he has a fantasy is his friend from back in the day. And I don't know, it's all coming really full circle in his story. But he's a little bit out of control drinking and driving like that. That's not cool. We don't condone that. Now, Nate shows up to Maddie's party and Cassie decides in her drunken stupor that she's gonna change into a one-piece bathing suit that's like super sexy, but it's kind of like a weird vibe because nobody else is changing into their bathing suits, but she heats up the hot tub and she only does it to show off to Nate. So Nate and Maddie are standing at the bottom of the stairs and she comes down sauntering out in this bathing suit, serving looks, might I say, but it's just very weird and Nate's trying to play it cool and not blow his cover. Once Jules, Rue, and Elliot leave the liquor store, they're driving home. Jules grabs a White Claw and puts the pack in the back seat. Rue grabs one, of course, because she's high and she's an addict, and why the fuck not? So she grabs one, starts drinking it. Elliot notices, turns around and discreetly says, hey, you shouldn't be drinking on that shit. Like, you're on drugs, you know, like it might not mix well. You could OD, basically. She says, I'm fine. Jules catches on to this and turns around and is like, why the fuck are you drinking? And Rue's like, I don't even have an issue with alcohol. Like, basically, she doesn't want to be hassled about, and she's just like, what the fuck? The vibe I get is that Rue feels like y'all have been doing your own thing the whole night, not really paying attention to me, and I'm having one White Claw and now it's a fucking problem. So she doesn't want to hear it, and she's like, just fucking drop me off. Like, I'm gonna walk home. She's like, just fucking drop me off. And Jules is like, what? And she goes, I can't fucking stand you. And Jules is all hurt, but my thing is, why would you put the White Claws in the back seat with a recovering addict who is also your girlfriend and think she might be able to control herself and not grab a drink? You know what I mean? So it's just pretty whack. And then they leave her on the side of the road to go home, and God forbid something happened to her, she gets home safe, but like, that's so whack. That's so whack. I would never leave a friend or a significant other on the side of the road. No matter if I was mad at them or anything, I would insist on taking them home. But I feel like Elliot blew away that line earlier in the episode because the whole time he's had an ulterior motive to have sex with Jules. Because he takes her right back to his place after that. And Jules goes, oh, can I take a shower? Like, come on, bro. Really? Like, I'm on to you. I'm on to you, Elliot. I'm rooting for Rue. So, I just think that's whack behavior. So we have this interesting montage between Cal and Cassie when the Sinead O'Connor song is playing. Cal is dancing at the gay bar, and Cassie is dancing alone in a room at her house. Cal is slow dancing with this guy, having this moment, and then in his drunkenness, he takes it too far and asks the guy to wrestle him, and he's not down. He ends up getting bounced out of the bar, and nobody was feeling him at the bar, so he was being way too aggressive. Everybody ends up getting in the hot tub at Cassie's, including Nate. He knows he's in for a mess because he's looking between Maddie and Cassie before they get in like fuck me. They get in there and Maddie starts kind of grilling Nate. And Nate quickly says, we're not back together, when Maddie says something about it. And then she gets upset about that because he said it a little too quickly for her taste. And Cassie is just sitting there so fucking drunk and just so emotional. I feel like Maddie might be onto them. I don't know. That's the vibe I got this episode. We're gonna have to see in the next one, but I just feel like as this interaction is happening, it seems like she's kind of putting the pieces together, but Cassie just ends up being totally overwhelmed and just puking. It's really gross. I can't watch people puke. I would be like Maddie, who's off to the side just gagging because it's so nasty and messy. And then her mom has to drag her out of the hot tub. It's just not a good look for Cassie. Rue gets home safely, thank God, and she pops 4 pills. She starts to nod off. They have this really incredible close-up shot of her with the light shining on her face, and you can just see the despair that she's in, and her story really just touches my heart. It's so painful. It's so painful to watch. Jules goes and hops in the shower, comes back out and proceeds to continue hooking up with Elliot, turns off her phone. I'm done with Jules after this episode. I'm done with her right now because I just feel like all of this is ultimate betrayal and so selfish. I understand that she's hurt, but it's like, is that an excuse to cheat on your girlfriend? Leave her on the side of the road, enable her, get mad at her, confront her. I don't know. Everybody is responsible in this situation, but Jules lays down with Elliot, starts kissing him, and he says he has to tell her something, and he confesses that Rue has relapsed, and he also hasn't been honest with her because he's been using everything from heroin, fentanyl, to benzos with her. Jules is upset and cries, walks out, tries to pull it together. Meanwhile, Fez and Ashtray and Faye, who is suspicious, are sitting at their place, and Mouse's affiliate knocks on the door, comes in and tells them that Mouse's baby mama has been asking all them questions. So that's not good either. We don't learn anything more about that in this episode, but that's a sketchy situation. Then we cut back to Rue in her room. She starts hearing this music, which is one of Labyrinth's original songs that he wrote with Zendaya and Sam Levinson, called I'm Tired. It's an absolutely incredible track, one of my favorites of the whole series so far. She's having an emotional moment and she gets up, walks through her door and walks into a church setting. All the pews are full and Labyrinth is singing up front in the church. Jules and Elliot are there looking at her and she walks up front. Basically, he's singing the song about despair and I shed a tear, I can't lie. This one really got me. She embraces Labyrinth. She's like tugging on his jacket. She's so upset and crying, staring off in the distance. She hallucinates that her dad appears and she's hugging him instead of Labyrinth. She apologizes to her dad and says that she's not a good person. And he reassures her that she is a good person. And she says, but you don't really know me anymore. And he says, I'm always with you. That shit right there, dude. That's an award-winning scene right there, in my opinion. That was beautiful. Then they flash to what's really happening with her, and she's just standing in her room, nodding off, dancing by herself. And that's the poster that you see for season 2, is that scene right there. It's a lot. I just felt like her sadness for losing her dad and how she copes with drugs, and I think it also ties into her being a kid and her mental illnesses that were treated with drugs. And we see it so often in society where people are prescribed drugs as children and then they become drug addicts. And then add on top of that her dad passing away from cancer and the trauma. I just really feel for her and I'm rooting for her, but she's in the deepest, darkest place we see her so far in the entire series. So I'm curious to see how that's going to unfold for her going forward. Then we have an iconic scene where Cal somehow gets back home. Marcia and the boys come out, Nate and his older brother, whose name eludes me at this moment. And he basically comes out to them. He pees on the floor. He's so toxic, but at the same time I feel for him because I understand why he's so repressed. And he goes on this entire rant. He won't put his penis away. And he calls out both of his sons. He calls out Marcia, gaslights everybody, but also confesses, and it's kind of funny in a dark humor kind of way. And then he takes their family photo and he just gets on out of there. He said, "I'm done with y'all." Then to wrap up the episode, basically they flash to every character and what they're going through at this moment. Jules stays with Elliot for the night, flashes to a photo of her and Rue. We don't really know if they're gonna stay together. I predict that they are probably gonna break up in the next episode. They have a lot to talk about. Jules cheated as well. Rue's out of control with her grief, with her drug abuse. Nate just witnessed his dad coming out. Maddie still has the tape of him and Jules as far as we know, and they haven't come out with what's gonna happen with that. Cassie is a mess over Nate. Nate is not in love with her. She's seeking validation through him. Kat is unhappy with Ethan. Yeah. That's basically it for this episode. There was a lot to unpack here and a lot of emotions. I thought this episode was intricate. There was a lot of nuance to it. I found it to be personally heart-wrenching, moving. It was incredible. And we're halfway through the season now, so I feel like some loose ends are gonna tie up and the story's only gonna get deeper and more moving, more complicated. So we'll see what happens. That concludes the episode 4 reaction video for Euphoria. Woo, what a journey. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe to my channel, like, comment on the videos. I appreciate you being here, and stay tuned for the next one. Peace.